Hola, cage fighting connoisseurs. This is Kid Nate, and I believe we are live. We are doing the UFC on Fox 12, Lawler versus Brown, sixth round. We've got no longer that fucking idiot. He is now shows up for work. Zane Simon makes me nervous all evening not being
Oh
online. Boom, there he
yeah.
is at the last minute. Comes through. The kid is here. What do you think about that? I think it was good, not quite great, but very, very good.
Oh, it was a lot of fun. I don't think it wasn't like Machida Weidman or Hendricks Lawler or some of the other really, really great fights, but it was really good. I mean,
Yeah, there was a moment in the third round when I was thinking it was going to be like the classic Raging Bull, sort of Jake LaMotta, Sugar Ray Robinson. One guy roars in, the other guy takes it, then they take turns. But Lawler established dominance in the third and fourth. Brown kind of came back in the fifth, but seemed to hurt his hand and just never quite put together the big run to go for the fight. But great fight, really impressive performance from Matt Brown.
yeah. I think everybody thought he was going to get knocked out early in that fight, it
It
seemed like.
looked like he was gonna in that first round. I mean, Lawler
Yeah.
immediately established range for not just the left, but the right and the left, the 1-2, 1-2, and
But yeah, and I mean, I even for the staff picks, I know I decided to pick Brown, take a flyer and pick Brown for that, even though I picked Lawler in the vivisection thing. And I mean, Brown almost came back in the
what kind of
second.
double dealing bullshit is that? You're picking the different, you're picking both guys, and you can say that's
Well,
like a Kid Nate
I
trick,
don't
dude.
know. I mean, everybody was picking Lawler. It got a little lame because I mean,
Yeah,
Brown did have a shot in this fight, and he had a shot in the way that he came back in the second round, and that was that he was able to trap Lawler in the clinch, and Lawler was just too comfortable trying to stay inside and battle with him for position and eat shots, and he got
and
hit
that
hard.
looked like I gotta hand it to you that it looked like. I mean, Brown did clearly have a bit of an edge in the clinch, but when Lawler hurt him on that break, I can't remember if it was the second or the third round when they came out of a clinch. That was kind of it for the clinch onslaughts from Brown. I mean,
Well, I mean, Lawler started to get smarter after that. He started to stay at range. He found his rhythm at range, and he just didn't let Brown clinch up with him, get inside on him anymore after that. I mean, that was really what it was. Is he just was able to stay outside and hurt Brown every time Brown came in, then dance away and get back out of range. It was
and
just
what
in the. Oh,
what did you think about the most controversial moment in the fight when Matt Brown was kicked with a body shot? The replay said it was not a low blow. Big John McCarthy paused the fight. Did you feel like that was
I
dirty
thought it
pool
was a
on
low.
Brown's
Like
part?
it looked to me like it hit across his thighs and skimmed off his cup. Tim's shaking his head no, so apparently I was the only one who saw it and thought that it looked reasonably low enough for a
You
stop.
and Big John McCarthy and Matt Brown all three agree, but nobody else, and that's why we call him that
No,
fucking
go
idiot
fuck
Zane
yourself.
Simon, guys.
Yeah.
That is it right there. It's objective proof. But we should give the results. A unanimous decision for Robbie Lawler, 49-46, 49-46, 48-47. We do need to introduce the show. Apologize to all the assholes and idiots who think this is the actual sixth round of the fight. No, the fight is over. There are only 5 rounds in MMA. So that's the title of our post-fight show. Give us a like on YouTube because a lot of those idiots are coming here and giving us a thumbs down. Interestingly, I should note that many of those idiots have been attacking me and slandering us in Spanish lately. So that gives me hope that the UFC might be capturing some attention of fans in Latin America, which is a good thing. All right,
Either that or
let's.
they think that you're not very they want to they want to try and make it a little harder for you to figure out what they're saying.
Well, they can stymie me, but not when I've got Google Translate
There
at
you
my
go.
at my fingertips. Although I still can't find out if Minotauro or Minotauro, which one is Minotaur and which one is dinosaur, and if Minotauro with an O is a specific kind of dinosaur or dinosaurs in general. I'm looking for a Portuguese paleontologist, so if anybody knows, let me go. Let's run through the main card right quick, then go through the whole card with fight by fight reviews. Other thoughts on the main 4 fights of the card? What were the highlights, lowlights?
Main four. I was really surprised that they gave Bobby Green that decision over Josh Thompson. I mean,
Were you
unfortunately,
really? I mean, I had
yeah.
it scored for Thompson, but I felt like Green won the fight and was physically dominant, and Thompson was hurt more.
I thought that
So
Green did a good job doing what, even what Connor argued is a really important skill, which is no selling getting hurt.
yeah, yeah.
But I thought that he got hit more and had less effective offense. So I mean, I don't know.
I thought he got hit more, but I thought his shots hurt more, and then
I don't
Thompson
know
was
if
the
I
one
don't
that
know if they
bloodied.
hurt more. I think he just played him off better.
Maybe
He's,
so, maybe so. He definitely was winning the head game, but and I think the thing that I underestimated about Green coming in, I mean, this is an ex-welterweight. He's bigger. He's a bigger guy than lightweights, and Thompson just seems small. And I think both guys count on using their movement to establish control of the cage, and Thompson was stymied by Green's ability to do that to him, and was not able to, counterfight. He wasn't able to get his teep going or any of the things he's done to control the cage against past opponents.
well, and I think part of it too is just that Josh Thompson, while he's a good fighter, he's always been really touch and go with his ability to finish fights and hurt opponents. And I mean, he's not the kind of guy that has like a go-to danger area where you're like, oh, Josh Thompson's striking with you, he's gonna knock you out, or oh, Josh Thompson's grappling with you, he's gonna submit you. It's like, oh, Josh Thompson's really competent everywhere, and sometimes he's just gonna somehow, like you did with Nate Diaz, just find the perfect rhythm and range and be out for
That was a
blood.
game plan. That was a game plan finish
Well,
when
yeah, I mean, but it was
yeah.
even people with that game plan have not been able to finish
It's
Nate.
true. It's true. It was a
So
beautifully executed
yeah,
game plan. But I mean, with the short notice against Bobby Green, no chance to develop a game plan like
yeah,
that. Plus, Bobby Green's much more of an enigma than the Diaz brothers.
yeah.
I mean, Thompson wasn't the first to solve the riddle of the Diaz brothers' style. He was
No,
capitalizing on game plans that others like Carlos Condit had used
yeah,
against
but
Nate's
I'm saying
brother Nick.
Josh Thompson. I mean, he's gotten a lot of finishes before. He gets, like I think like 14 of his 19 wins are by submission or KO. But he
He doesn't
doesn't.
have a trademark finishing move. Is where you're
Yeah,
going.
he's not like really. There's not a place where you watch Josh Thompson. You're like, oh, if he stands at range against Josh Thompson, he's gonna get knocked out.
Yeah, there's
Like
no H bomb in the Josh Thompson arsenal, but
yeah,
Dennis Bermuda is very impressive in demolishing Clay Guida. Wasn't a big surprise, at least to us, but
no.
very impressive performance. And do you think he deserves a title shot after this?
I don't know about a title shot over Clay Guida, coming off a win over Clay Guida. I mean, this was a tight fight, a
But
fight
it was on
Taylor.
Fox. It was on Fox.
Whatever. I mean, this was a fight tailor made for him to win. Like he
Oh
should
yeah.
beat Guida 9 times out of 10, even 10 times out of 10. I
In
mean, he's just
2014, definitely. And
yeah. In
a few years ago,
2014,
that was a different thing. But I think Bermudez at this point is very disciplined, has his offense together in a way he didn't early in his career. And Guida
yeah,
really just doesn't. It just isn't the force he once was anymore.
yeah. I mean, Tim just told me to give Dennis Bermudez Frankie Edgar to fight, which that'd be fun. I mean, like
I
he
think that would be
does.
quite
Bermudez
interesting.
does need a top 5 win before he gets a title shot. I think. I mean, whether it's somebody like maybe fighting even Korean Zombie when Korean Zombie comes back,
If
or
Korean Zombie comes back, and we hope he does. But yeah,
yeah,
I agree. Frankie Edgar would be an excellent choice because Bermudez is not going to be selling any pay-per-views. That's a
no,
harsh
and
reality,
and
even after
so
this exposure.
yeah, I mean Bermudez beating Clay Guida shouldn't get him a title shot, but it should put him up against a top 5 opponent.
Yeah, and Frankie Edgar's an excellent choice coming off that crushing win over BJ Penn the day after UFC 175, the tough 19 finale or whatever it was. All right, and so no surprise to anybody except our own poor, naive, sweet, kind-hearted Dallas Winston. Anthony Rumble Johnson destroyed Little Nog in a fight I
Oh,
didn't want
Dallas
to
tried to
see.
make it sound like Nog would have some sort of shot there, and I was surprised at just how brutal this was because I mean
I
I
wasn't.
expected Johnson to run over him, but still it was just that was
Yeah.
shockingly
There
bad.
was like 10 seconds before they made contact when I was thinking, okay, Little Nog's a southpaw, maybe this will confuse him. And then as soon as Johnson touched him, it was like, no, that's not happening. And then I was
No.
basically curled up in the fetal position crying for the remaining 44 seconds of the fight, or 34 seconds of the fight. So Johnson, I do have to say, Johnson pinpointed those strikes really nicely, though.
Oh yeah, no, he's no longer people who are talking about it. And, like I still hear, and even from a lot of like respectable MMA people who are talking about, oh Johnson's just so fast and so athletic, and he's so like strong and all these he
Explosive. I believe he left out
yeah
explosive.
he's so explosive, and like that's why he's gonna beat Nogueira. And it's like no, he's one of the most technical strikers in light heavyweight. I mean, we're not talking about a guy who just has powerful kicks and is really fast and strong anymore. We're talking about a guy who is a technically better kickboxer than I would say anyone else at 205 in the UFC.
That's an interesting proposition. I'm running through the roster. It's not the most technical division,
It's not.
obviously, in the UFC, but I think Daniel Cormier.
As a kickboxer?
Well, I'm not. I'm thinking
As a
through. I think he's
kickboxer?
got physical assets. I don't think his technique game, but I think
Daniel
Cormier
Cormier
as a
is
kickboxer is an interesting challenge for Rumble.
Daniel
But
Cormier as a fighter is a tough matchup and an impossible matchup for almost anyone, but that doesn't make him the best kickboxer.
no, I'm
And
not saying that. I'm just saying technically, I think Cormier has um, some weapons, some assets.
technically, Cormier has the tools to beat anyone in the division.
Yeah, but
Honestly,
I just think his speed mainly, his striking, and being the shorter guy, it'll be interesting to see, or might be interesting to see how Johnson would react to that should he get the opportunity, which it looks like he's headed for a title shot. But Cormier is going to have to fight John Jones. John Jones could very easily make a Cormier Rumble Johnson matchup entirely moot, at least for the time being. Any other thoughts on that one before we run through the bottom of the undercard?
no, I mean it was just great to see that great to see Johnson keep form. I mean that's what I want. I want a top five fighter to look like a top five fighter every time out. So
Yeah.
it was great to see him stay absolutely on point.
And should Nogueira retire after this?
Shut up, Tim. He probably. I mean, I don't want to tell anybody to retire. He can fight as much as he wants, but I have no interest in seeing him in really like top. I don't want to see him against anyone in the top 15. Maybe Shogun. I'd watch him fight Shogun again.
I still want to see the Shogun fight. I've been howling for the Shogun fight ever since
they're
Pride
both so
closed.
shop worn at this point that they can have like a geriatric version of their first war.
Well, it could be like the Couture Big Nog fight. That was an excellent fight.
Yeah,
At
that was an
UFC
excellent
102
fight,
or whatever it
but that was
was.
before the wheels quite fell off Couture. That was like,
Yeah,
but that Brandon Vera fight was when you were like, oh my god, you won that. Like
yeah, that was
that was when Randy started looking like he did not have much left in the tank.
no, he didn't, and it just got worse from there. But
And
let's run through
yeah, he won it, and they gave him that fight against Lyoto Machida, and that was just like
yeah, that was
that was bad.
That's what happens to fighters in their careers. All right, so let's run through the prelims quickly. Featherweights Noah Lahat defeated Steven Siler. A string of decisions, all but one of the 7 or 8 prelim fights went to decision. So we'll just run them through quickly. Noah Lahat defeated Steven
Yeah,
Siler.
that was a good upset, good victory for Lahat. He looked a lot better and a lot more improved. On Steven Siler, yeah, I mean he looked better. He looked like more the prospect I'd hoped he would be first time out.
Yeah, and hopefully his tenure in the Israeli Defense Forces will not be too long of an interruption for his career. And certainly his career is the least of our concerns. My thoughts and prayers to everybody over there, and hopefully peace comes soon. But women's catchweight fight, Joanna, and they said it, and it seemed easy and pronounceable the first time they said it, and then they backed off from saying her name and just called her Joanna. Do you want to take a stab at saying her name?
It was Yedershik.
Yedershik, yes.
But
Joanna
it's
Jędrzejczyk.
JJ.
JJ versus Juliana Lima. Pretty much exactly what everybody predicted going into this. Lima would have a run early to try to get her down. Couldn't get her down, and from there it was just basically a punching bag. But was it annoying or what when Rogan and Goldberg called it? First off, it was a catchweight fight, not a strawweight fight. They kept saying it was the first women's strawweight fight when it wasn't even a strawweight fight, and we already had the first women's UFC strawweight fight like 2 weeks ago. That was. I rarely know what's going on enough to catch shit like that, but that was egregious.
Oh yeah, we got to talk too. I'm being reminded because I have a peanut gallery for this. That that Juliana Lima's entrance was one of the most hilariously god awful awkward things I've ever seen in my life.
She was excited. You got to hand it to her.
She looked like it was like if Clay Guida walked out to an empty room and nobody cared. Like that was the entrance. She was just like hyped as all hell. There were 5 people in the building, and she was trying to get everybody pumped up, and they're like,
Yeah, well, it was a big moment for her. So
yeah. I understand her being pumped, but it looked so weird on TV.
Yeah, and she definitely was that can I think Rogan was correct in attributing that to octagon jitters and a newbie first time out mistake, and she just pushed it too hard early and then had nothing left. She did come back in the third and get a takedown, but it was too
Yeah.
little, too late. But let's talk about a much better fight. Welterweights Gilbert Burns and Andrea Stahl. I thought this was a hell of a fight. Went to a decision with Burns taking the unanimous decision. And we should mention JJ won the unanimous decision in the women's fight. But Burns and Stahl, I thought both looked really good, and I tweeted that they both deserve to feast on tough chum for at least 2 or 3 more fights after this.
Yeah, I mean, Stahl, he's faster than everybody thinks he is, just because he's kind of like this gangly looking, Northern European dude, and he's really got fast hands. He's great in scrambles. He transitions well, and Burns is just like his time with the Black Zillions. They've made him a bit of a decent technical kickboxer. Like
And
they've
he's got some
really,
pop too.
yeah, he's got some power. They've solidified his technique. They're really working to keep him grounded, and obviously he's got great jiu-jitsu as well. So, yeah, I mean, it was a good fight between a guy in Stahl who's going to be scrappy, I think, for quite a while, and Burns who's really young in his career and has some real potential.
Yeah, Burns definitely has some potential. I don't want to see him turn into a more polished version of George Urgel, though, and forget the jiu-jitsu, but we'll see how that goes. And lightweights, Thiago Tractor against Akbar Areola, a slightly better fight than I expected going in. Areola's crafty, but
Yeah, he's a crafty vet. He's been around for a long time. He's fought a lot of good fighters, so he knows how to stay alive in a fight, but he did not know how to do a whole lot else. Like
no,
he's got a kicking game from the outside, and he landed some good kicks. But by the third round, Tractor Dos Santos was just eating him alive with his Muay Thai game.
yeah. I don't know how big the upside is for Tractor. It's hard to gauge against what's frankly subpar, sub UFC level competition, but we'll find out presumably in future fights. And that brings us to the 4-fight Fox prelim card, which opened with featherweight Brian Ortega and Michael De La Torre. Ortega came out quickly, got a submission, rear naked choke in 1 minute and 39 seconds of the first round. I was really glad to see that because I'm superstitious about cards, and it seems like when a card starts off violent with a lot of finishes, that continues. This card was off to a not exciting start. I mean, it wasn't that there weren't good fights. It's just it was decision,
Yeah.
decision, and so it was nice to see a quick submission. Thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I mean Ortega. I think it was nice to see him prove that even against a guy like De La Torre, who is very athletic and who's a very good, solid sprawl and brawl guy. I mean, was able to keep what's his name, Bocek from taking him down at 155. That Ortega's scrambling jiu-jitsu is good enough that he could just stay on him and stay on him and stay on him and lock something up. I mean, that's what you want to see out of a really aggressive submission fighter, is that they can get to positions where they can be aggressive and they can maintain and transition well to those kind of positions. And it was a great showing for Ortega, exactly the kind of fight that he had to win if he really wanted to keep his hype train rolling as somebody that people should be interested in.
Yeah, so we'll look forward. I'm not expecting huge things. I'm very skeptical of the submission artists in modern MMA, but should have the potential to achieve mid-tier status in the UFC.
Oh, whatever. That I'm not gonna. Don't base Ortega's ceiling off your skepticism.
I'll base his ceiling on my wild optimism. This kid's a champion. He can't be stopped.
You don't have wild optimism, so what does that matter?
I have moments of wild optimism. Earlier today, I was fantasizing about betting on a huge underdog and winning a fortune, but
Fantasizing. Did you hear that? Not optimism. That is cynicism masking as optimism. That is the cynicism of middle age masking as optimism.
It's true. My dreams are long crushed. But welterweights, Tim Means, Hermani Perpetuo, a pretty gritty performance from Means.
Yeah.
Took the unanimous decision win. Thoughts on that one?
It was really. I mean, it was nice to see Perpetuo fight more the kind of fight I want to see from him. He was, like I say, I kind of scouted him as like a B-grade Carlos Condit, and you can see he's got that sort of come forward kicks and punches style in big flurries. But he doesn't maintain it well enough, and Means has power and was able to just sit inside and be patient and pick his spots and eventually kind of take over the fight. They're two guys I like, and they're two guys who look pretty much primed to be win one, lose one welterweights.
Yeah, yeah. It might be fun to see Gilbert Burns against Means. What do you think about that fight?
Yeah, sure. I mean, that's exactly the kind of fight that would be a good, like, you should win this, but it's a good test fight. It's a good step up for somebody like Burns. Although Burns might be headed right down to lightweight, even
He
as
might
big as
want
he
it because
looks.
he's fairly not the biggest guy, and somebody like Means. That's what intrigues me about it, though. Because, it's always interesting to see how a shorter fighter with a lot of skills handles a tall, lanky guy like
Yeah,
Means.
and Means used to be a lightweight. I mean, that's what he was in his first trip to the UFC, so he certainly wouldn't be so much bigger, even though he's not a big. He's a pretty big, lanky dude.
Yeah, and speaking of big dudes, light heavyweight Patrick Cummins demolished Kyle Kingsbury.
Uh,
Is this the most uneven scorecard you can recall? Because he had one
yeah, I
thirty
didn't
twenty seven, a
realize.
30-25, and a 30-24. That means it was three 10-8 rounds on that judge's card, which
I
is
can't believe that. That's ridiculous. I mean, like, it's nice to see,
I
but
think it was accurate. I mean, I
yeah,
can't, but I was
I don't.
astonished when I heard those.
No, I mean, it's nice. It's nice to see, but it's so weird from MMA because you never see people hand out 10-8s with that kind of regularity. So
Yeah, but
it's a really weird scorecard. I mean, it basically, Kyle Kingsbury, he apparently retired right after that fight.
he did. He
So
did. We commemorated it on Bloody Elbow with an ode to his
yeah, I saw that.
semen sushi on the
That
Ultimate
was
Fighter.
that was lovely.
Well, we're not going to let the guy pass unremarked when he's responsible for, I think, the absolute low point of the Ultimate Fighter series. And one of the all-time, I'm not a connoisseur of reality television by any means,
It's
but
not an all-time low for reality television. Don't even try to paint that brush. That's like I'm sure that you could find something far more unimaginably bad. I mean, there was a surreal world out there that had like Vanilla
yeah.
Ice and like Flava Flav in a house,
I
like
seem to recall, didn't Flavor Flav host a show where women,
Flavor of Love.
some woman soiled herself, I think?
Probably.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's not even close, but still,
Yeah, it was a low point in it was a relative low point in MMA reality show history.
I think it was an absolute low point in MMA
It
reality show
it
history.
could be, yeah.
I mean, there have been some off-brand MMA shows. The one that was on BET might have been worse for its entirety than the Seaman Sushi. But anyway, that's enough about Kingsbury because this was about Patrick Cummins who demolished him. Just put on a really nice performance.
Yeah.
Couldn't get the finish and was frustrated with himself, but I don't think he has anything to berate himself about. I mean, he put on a wonderful performance against
Yeah, I
Kingsbury.
mean he's a solid prospect at 205, which unfortunately says all. I mean, it just sucks that all the 205 prospects are like 30. It's like
At
Alir
30 in
Latifi.
Cummins' case.
Yeah, Alir Latifi is like 30, 31. Patrick Cummings is 32, and these are your up and coming guys. I mean, these are the guys that are developing.
Well, I remember once upon a time a 33-year-old named Randy Couture entered the octagon for the first
Okay,
time.
now
So,
stop. That doesn't even mean anything. That's like,
well,
it was a 33-year-old. He was who was he fighting? He was fighting yeah, it was Vitor
Vitor Belfort
Belfort.
was like his third fight, but Couture he was fighting Chum
I
before
mean,
that.
that was way back in that was like UFC 19 or something. I mean, these
Oh,
were
so it
like
was earlier than that. It was like
these were early
13.
days.
Yeah, yeah, and I was also in a pre-drug testing environment. So it was UFC 13 beat Tony Holm, Stephen Graham, and then UFC 15 beat Vitor Belfort. It was awesome.
Okay, and Holm was a pro wrestler who had a very short stint in MMA. So
Yeah, yeah, and Stephen Graham was nothing to write home about
yeah.
either. But nevertheless, Cummins doesn't
They're
have
legit prospects at 205. Don't like that's the
sure.
thing. They're legit, but you're not seeing any of the like 23-year-old like, oh man, what's this guy gonna be like in 5 years? It's like,
Yeah,
oh
no.
hey, this guy's kind of coming along weirdly.
Yeah,
That's
no, you pretty much see him. I think somebody at that age is probably a finished product. I don't like if Cummins had an arsenal of front chokes and neck cranks, he could have got that finish
he can
in the first
develop a
round.
little. I mean, he's early enough in his career that I could see him getting a little better, but it's just not like I don't know. It's just weird. It's just a weird way to like see new talent is like, it's like them the heavyweight division getting that 39-year-old guy in his ninth pro fight. Like,
These
yeah,
things happen in
he's
MMA.
developed a little, like he's developing, but he's also almost 40. So,
Yeah, he's only, but nevertheless,
yeah,
beautiful performance from Cummins
very
and,
good.
and game from Kingsbury. I mean,
Yeah.
he didn't soil himself and
Yeah.
on fetal
That's high
position,
praise.
and
Did
his
not
beard
shit
looks great.
himself. Well done, sir.
Well, when I was in high school in a wrestling bout, I got slammed 11 times in one bout and crawled off the mat bleeding, and so I can sympathize. But that only lasted 5 minutes, and it was an extremely long ordeal. Kingsbury was out there for 15 minutes plus the between rounds, so that's like 20 minutes of complete abject destruction and humiliation. I mean,
Yeah.
uh,
Well, I
you
mean, at
know.
least it solidified his decision to retire that he should have stuck with 2 years ago, the first time he was thinking about it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, frankly, he was a tough guy with pretty good athleticism but limited fighting skills, and so wasn't going to go anywhere. But Cummins and Latifi, people are calling for that fight. I would love to see that. Two
That'd be
muscly
fun.
wrestlers could be quite interesting. But
Yeah.
and then the final fight on the prelim card: George Masvidal and Darren Cruikshank. Uh, Better fight, as good a fight as I'd hoped for. Really,
Yeah.
it was what we expected. Masvidal dominated the second and third round
Yep.
with grappling and
His
clinch
inside
fighting. But
boxing.
Cruikshank knocked him down in the first with the
Yeah.
right hand. I did not see that coming.
I mean, Masvidal basically like I think even when I was making this prediction on like paper and all that, Masvidal was always going to lose the first round of this fight. He just was. It was just going to be like, is he going to get knocked out? Probably not. If he doesn't get knocked out, he'll win. And he almost got knocked out. I mean, he came close.
He got dropped. He got dropped,
Yeah,
but he was right back on his feet. But yeah, I was, Masvidal, like we talked about on the vivisection, he's got a bad habit of fighting down to his opponent's level sometimes, and he's a bit of a slow starter. But I just could not believe he was hanging out at range and
I know.
chasing Cruikshank around the cage like that, like just endlessly circling. He showed in the second and third round against a more tired Cruikshank that he knows how to cut off the cage.
Well, yeah, I mean, he has the skill, and he had exactly the style to beat Cruikshank. I mean, that's the thing to me is that this is a prototypical in the same way that Eric Koch. Like I remember looking at that fight when heading into it, and a lot of people were like, "Oh, Koch's gonna win this," and it's like Koch has exactly the wrong style to beat Cruikshank. And Masvidal has exactly the right style to beat him, but it took him a while to get to that style and find his rhythm. And he did start to get inside and outbox Cruikshank pretty handily, and then started taking him down and roughing him up. And it was exactly the kind of performance he should put on to win it. And I'm not. It's unfortunate. It's one of those things that like eventually it doesn't really tell me anything about either fighter because like my prediction would be that Masvidal would lose the first round and then come back and grind, like come and get inside box and outwork
Yeah.
Cruikshank, and it's just
I
like,
mean,
well,
I think the thing about Masvidal at this point is that I think he's a top 10 lightweight, but he's had one submission and one KO in the last 5 years, and
yeah,
so that to me is developing an unfortunate happiness with going to decisions and he's not polishing his finishing arsenal and for such a ferocious person, it's frustrating and I'd like to see more, but it is what it is. Any thoughts on who Masvidal should fight next?
well, they've got a bunch of guys that have been kind of propped up into the bottom of the top 15 at lightweight, so probably Michael Johnson. Some guys who need a test.
Yeah, Johnson was supposed to fight Josh Thompson tonight, so that would be
Yeah,
that would be a good one. That would be a really good one, actually. I'd have to think about who would have the best shot in that fight. That would be an
yeah.
excellent fight. So last thoughts on the main card. Josh Thompson. That's probably the end of his lightweight title hopes in the UFC.
Yeah, that might even be the end of his career. I could see him being so disgusted with that. Because, I mean, beforehand, even, like, he was complaining about how refs don't really know what they're looking at with fights. And I could just see him being sick to death of it and hanging it up because I'm sure he feels like he got robbed.
Yeah, he's already
I'm
said that. He came out
yeah.
online and or I saw that online. Probably a
Yeah,
post-fight
I
interview.
honestly thought, yeah, I mean, I think that he probably did enough to deserve the win here. Um, but it was a close fight. Green,
Yeah,
I
he didn't do
basically,
so much that I'm outraged or
yeah,
anything.
I think the big thing I came away with was that I was really impressed with how well Green did on short notice,
Yes.
and with how well and with how well he stuck to a game plan, stayed in, and did a great job no selling Thompson. I mean, that was the big thing, is he just, everything Thompson hit him with, he shook it off, was like, I'm fine. And
Yeah,
Thompson
yeah.
doesn't do that, you
No.
know.
Well, it's hard to do that when you're bleeding, for one thing. And
Yeah, but
and
even still, when he gets hit, he tends to go like, he tends to like go like that kind of thing, and like, he reacts really heavily to getting hit. Like
yeah,
he
yeah.
shows it, and
It's true. It's true. And so I don't know. I don't know. I'm not. It was as impressive as he was against Nate Diaz, and he was quite good against Ben Henderson, although he got hurt early in that fight. I'm not just heartbroken that Thompson doesn't have another title run.
oh yeah,
I don't think he
whatever.
was going to beat Anthony Pettis or anything, but a fine fighter, storied career, and so it would be a shame to see him go out on a split decision loss like that. But
Man,
it
it's
is what
better
it
than going
is.
out on a brutal knockout after brutal knockout after brutal knockout, which is how
This is
everybody else
very
seems to
true.
want to go out.
Yeah, well, that's the traditional way fighters end. So, any other thoughts on the rest of the main card before we wrap up on the main event?
No, I mean, I think people finally, at least, have got to stop being so down on Bermudez. I've seen a lot of people who are just like, oh, I don't think Bermudez is for real. He's had some bad fights early in his UFC run, but he's obviously gotten way better, and he's better enough to the point that he was always comfortably ahead of Clay Guida at every point in this fight. It wasn't really competitive at all, and Johnson, he looks legit. I'm happy to see him looking legit, and obviously Lawler's pretty much primed for another
Before we
title
get to
run.
Lawler Brown, what are your thoughts on Johnson versus Jones and versus Cormier? Which one of the two do you think he has a better chance against?
Jones,
Because
definitely.
yeah, I'd have to agree with that. After watching Johnson's last fight, I was thinking, holy shit, this is a guy who could actually just physically just monster Jones. I mean, just walk through him
Well,
maybe.
and he's varied enough and he's technical enough on the outside that I think he could at the very least repeat or come close to Alexander Gustafsson's performance.
Yeah, and with much more power than
Yeah.
Gustafsson has. And so we haven't really seen Jones take a shot that like the ones Rumble is passing
Well,
out.
I mean, we've seen Jones has a great chin. I mean, I don't know that
It's
he
true.
would. I don't think he would beat Jones, but I do wonder
How
at
would Jones beat
times
Rumble? How do you see that playing out?
he could grind him against the cage. He could grind him and dirty box him, and just he doesn't use his reach that well.
Nah, Jones
Maybe.
has no jab. He's got the good front leg kicks, but I think that
Yeah.
would open him up to some nasty
I mean,
counters.
I think he could outkick Rumble from the outside and like kick him in the knees and kind of stave him off enough to get him uh sort of over aggressive and pissed off, and then force a clinch fight.
Yeah, an elbow him
And
in the
so
head, and
I
so.
think that Jones could pick him down. I think Jones could break him down over 5 rounds,
And what about
but
Cormier?
Cormier is just kind of an athletic freak, and with his wrestling talent, I would worry that Cormier would just be able to body him over and over again, um, in ways that Rumble just isn't equipped to stop. I mean, that's my worry with everyone against Cormier.
Yeah,
And
yeah. And Cormier is an excellent phase shifter, and also surprisingly fast with his hands.
yeah,
And so, although I think it would be foolish to
I
try
mean,
to.
I would love to see either fight. That's really where it is for me. Like, I think either fight would be a shitload of fun. And really, I just want to see Anthony Johnson fight anyone at this point. I don't care. I just want to see him in there,
What
see
do
him
you
in
think
full
about
fight.
a Johnson Gustafson fight?
That would be all sorts of fun. That
And I would pick Johnson handily in that.
I wouldn't pick anybody handily. I think it'd just be all. I think it'd just be great. Tim is yelling that you're wrong. He's angry now. He's entered the angry drunk phase.
It can. That's Tim Burke, former editor of Bloody Elbow. He's welcome to log in and post a drunken fan post if he's really he's really that fired up. But Yeah, I don't know. I think it would be foolish to waste a Gustafson Johnson fight though in a non-title context. I think both of those guys should be kept in the title lane. And if they have to have a fight before they get a title shot, that it should be somebody um, that they would be an easier win. But maybe I'm wrong about that because you always want the win. If they
Well,
go in and get upset, then you.
it'd be fun to watch either of them fight Rashad Evans.
I just Rashad Evans. I went back actually and rewatched parts of that Rashad Evans Little Nog fight after the vivisection. I just don't think Rashad's into it anymore.
He
You know?
looks way better than he did after that Little Nog fight. That fight was long enough now that he's had a couple of really good performances since then. I
Fair
mean,
enough.
he said he did not was not feeling it at that point in his career, and he's looked a lot better since then. So,
Yeah, but he's also doing interviews talking about pro wrestling
oh, I
and
know. I
just
mean, but he's still ranked in the top of the division, so you got to do something with him. I mean, maybe he's
that's
not
true.
competitive, but you get him out of there. You get other guys, circle
Yeah.
other guys into the title talk. Get him out of the top five if he's not going to compete in the top five.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Fair enough. All right, let's talk about the main event. Lawler versus Hendricks. How do you see that playing out?
The second time,
Yeah, the rematch.
um, I see it playing out a lot like the first time. Honestly, I mean,
How much do you
I
think the Hendricks torn bicep made Lawler look? I mean, do you think there's anything
no,
to that?
I don't think there's much to that.
I
Honestly,
mean, a torn bicep is pretty serious, dude. Like,
it is, but I don't know. I mean, from what I've seen from Hendricks in the past, I mean, did he have that torn bicep against GSP? Because that was basically the same kind of performance.
it's true. It's
I
true.
mean, I just don't. I don't think. I think Hendricks. That's the fighter Hendricks is. He's a guy who's gonna stand in the pocket and trade blows. He's gonna hit hard, and he'll actually, he's getting more polished. He does better mixing up his combinations these days, and then he'll, go in and get takedowns, and he's not the greatest top control ground and pound guy in the world, but he uses it to control and keep guys off balance a little bit so that they have to work a little harder against
So
him
you're
standing
seeing
up.
another decision loss for Lawler.
I don't know. The first fight was so close that I just see it being another close fight. I don't see either guy being able to run away with it.
Well, it's something to look forward to because that first fight was a gem, and
Yeah, the first fight was amazing, and I think nothing I saw tonight suggested that Robbie Lawler would put on a worse performance. I mean,
no, he definitely seems like he is come into his own as a professional fighter, and this is his time, and at top of his game in a top camp, doing what he needs to do, making the sacrifices. This is his life right now, and what a life it is for the fans that are getting to enjoy his work because it's a master martial artist. I'm looking forward to seeing
yeah,
Conor Rubish or Jack Slack talk about the striking exchanges in that fight, and I'm watching it again too. I'm hopefully get the kids to bed early tomorrow night and get to watch that fight a second time because there was some fun stuff going on that I couldn't follow. Some of the footwork was
yeah.
was
Well, I mean, that whole second round for Matt Brown needs to be looked at in detail because Brown was doing some incredible shit in the clinch there. I mean, that was just all sorts of little tiny trips to knees and, little push this way to a couple of elbows over the top and all sorts of little things that were just eating Lawler up. And, looking at that and then, Lawler's ability to adjust and make sure that he didn't get caught there again
Yeah,
was
I think the
huge.
key moments are how did Brown get in those clinches, and how did
Yeah.
Lawler prevent him from getting in those clinches in the third, fourth, and fifth. And then the wrestling exchanges later in the fight were much more Lawler. I mean, when Lawler
Yeah.
set him on his butt that one time, very nice stuff. But anyway, final thoughts on the card?
It was a really solid card for a card that had so many decisions. That had like what, six,
It had
seven,
it
eight,
had all
nine,
but three.
nine decisions and three finishes. It was a really fun card. Like, it was fun top to bottom. The fight that went to decisions were all competitive. We're all back and forth. I mean, well, okay, maybe not Kingsbury Cummins, but
Yeah, that
uh,
one was not, but that was very entertaining. I thought
yeah,
just because
The rest of the fights, the rest of the decisions were all competitive. They were all, there were no slow grinds. There were no just like, oh God, when is this going to be over?
Yeah,
So
even the Tractor Areola fight, which I thought was the weakest fight on the card, wasn't bad at all. I mean,
no,
it was pretty entertaining, and despite it being a Fox card, which sometimes I think the Fox cards are not as larded up with commercials as the FS1 cards, and because Fox can sell advertising inventory unlike FS1, and so FS1 loads it up on when it's UFC night. And also, I think the commercials on Fox are more tolerable than the
uh,
commercials on
I
FS1.
thought that Harley commercial after a while made me want to,
Oh
throw
my
things
god.
at my TV. But
Yeah, that was an instant mute. All right, well that's our show. So thanks for watching. Remember to give us a like on YouTube because the bad guys won't leave us alone and keep giving us the downs because they want to see a fifth round. And who blames? I mean a sixth round of Lawler Brown. I was ready for 7 rounds of that shit.
absolutely,
If I would love to see a 7 round fight like that. But give us a like, subscribe to MMANation.com on YouTube, follow us on Twitter at TheZaneSimon, at TheKidNate, read us on BloodyElbow.com. I'll be back tomorrow with a bathrobe review unless I don't get a chance because of parental obligations. And Eugene will be back with Knuckle Up. We have no UFC in the immediate future. Next thing coming up. Let's see, what is the next one? It was supposed to be UFC 176, but that ain't happening, so we don't have anything until the 17th of August when we've got
16th, I think.
16th. We've got Bader versus St. Preux in
Yeah, I
August
might be
16th.
missing that card. So
Yeah, that looks like one that might be missable.
yeah, it's got some fun fights on it, but if you were gonna miss a card sometime soon, this would be one to
This
miss.
might be the one, and then we got Bisping versus Lee on the 23rd. Might be entertaining, but Henderson versus Dos Anjos. Yeah, it looks like there's going to be a little bit of a lull before the big autumn and winter comes to
Yeah.
hit us. So anyway, thanks, Zane, and adios, MMA aficionados, and give my regards to Mr. Burke.
Will do.
All right.